Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Presence Posse Presents. We are live and it is Monday, the 30th of August. And the theme for today is presence in the workplace. And I actually discovered it was part 2. We actually did a presence in the workplace a little while ago. But we don't care because presence is all the time. So we can revisit topics. And there's always more to talk about. And I have with me Jan Hart, who is our resident human resources expert person and presence person. She has a more official title than that, but I'm going to let Jan tell you more about herself. And I'm Miriam Siegel, and I'm a psychotherapist and a relational mindfulness person, facilitator, as it's called. So let's get started, Jan, with the topic.
Yeah.
I don't even want to ask you a question. What do you want to accept? What do you want to say?
Yeah, I'll just kick off.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to say. We'll see what comes to mind while I'm present. So as you said, I work in HR and I spend a lot of my time in and out of organizations. More and more these days, I seem to be transitioning into spending more time helping people with their emotional worlds and navigating their way through that, which is very interesting. But they kind of go hand in hand, because presence to me is said in the little quote that we had in the event by Eckhart Tolle, and he says, presence is the alignment of our being with whatever we are doing or wherever we are in the present moment. And when I go into workplaces or anywhere else, really, it seems that we have become human doings more than human beings. And there's very little presence in the sense of aligning our being with what we're doing and where we are in the workplace. And when we're not present, we're somewhere else. And, Bobby calls it time traveling, and, we hear it spoken about in various other ways. I love the time traveling, because if we're not present, then we're either back in the past or we're off in the future. And in the workplace, I see a lot of people in both, but never in the present. Mm-hmm. My best prediction of my future performance is my past. So I must lean into my past and see what I did there. Or a lot of what ifing. What if we do this and what if we do that? And what if it turns out this way? And what if it turns out that way? And people are exhausted. And it just seems more and more apparent to me that the lack of presence and the amount of efforting and figuring out and trying to control and make things go certain ways is a big contributor to that exhaustion that people feel. And the more presence that we can bring to what we're doing, the more alive we become in what we're doing. And, a simple thing like, it's not in the workplace necessarily, it could be anywhere, but washing your hands. When we go to wash our hands, how present are we to the miracle of water coming out of a tap? Do we hear the sound of the water? Do we hear it hit the porcelain or the stainless steel or whatever it is? We go to put soap in our hand. How many times do we get the scent of that smoke, that soap as we go to wash our hands? Or do we even notice the feeling of the soap on our hands or notice the bubbles? We don't, we're in such a hurry.
Yeah.
And it's a whole different experience when we're present with anything that we do. People complain in the workplace of having to do repetitive things over and over and over. And, I argue and put out there and question, I suppose, how present we are. Because if we're really present in any task, it's not repetitive. Because if we've aligned our being with it each and every time, it's going to be unique and a different experience. Because what shows up for us in any present moment is unique. But when we have to perform repetitive tasks, what I see is that people operate from their story of what they're doing rather than what they're actually doing. Oh, this is my 20th time doing this. Take this, put it here, move it here, do that, blah, blah, blah. And we're not at all present. We're living in the running commentary that's going on in the head, and we're not at all present or aligned with what we're doing. But there can be far more enjoyment when we're present. And, it just looks and feels different when we are present. So that's just one example. You posed a question about, a botched presentation. You make a botched presentation at work and you see the glance coming from your boss of, for God's sake, or, they're not satisfied anyway. When we're present to that, we can notice our experience of our own assessment of a botched presentation and of our experience of getting feedback from somebody else that we interpret as less than satisfied. And when we're aware and can pay attention to our own experience of what's happening in the moment, it brings its own set of thinking and its own set of possibilities and ways forward. When we're not present, we layer our own thoughts. Oh my God, I botched the presentation. Why did I do that? How did I do that? My boss is looking at me. He doesn't like it. And we layer on all this thinking.
I'm going to lose my job.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to get that promotion. Oh my God, and whatever. And before we know it, we're gone off into a thought storm that we have brewed up in our own head. And that comes with its own set of thinking and possibilities or lack thereof.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose the difference is when we're not present, we tend to get lost in a story, and that leads to tension and tightness and contraction and cutting off of possibilities and into disastrous type of thinking. And when we are present, we can remain open. And the more open and receptive we are to whatever feedback is coming, we're open to possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
We can remain curious. What did I botch up? Why am I telling myself I botched this up? What does my boss see that he's looking at me like that? Ask for feedback. Whatever they say, can I see that in myself? Or is that just an opinion that I can take or leave? Those options aren't available to you when you're gone off in a story in your head.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just a couple of examples of what presence in the workplace means, to me anyway.
You have so many good expressions. I really love. I would love to be writing notes, and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm going to watch this again afterwards.
It's recorded.
You don't need notes. Take notes now. I love listening to you talk. I think, is there, as you were talking about the botched presentation, and I know I wrote it in the thing on Facebook, is there ever really a botched presentation? Like if the botched presentation is an example, because it is an opportunity to learn something, improve something. Yeah. So how is it botched? I mean, I can imagine with the idea of success or not held up to it, mm-hmm. It can be judged, I guess, as botched or not, or if you wanted a certain outcome or to reach people in a certain way or something like that, which is, I guess that's the kind of success idea. Yes. But otherwise, it's what's my experience of the situation? Yeah. My experience of what worked, what didn't work. I may think that something didn't reach the people listening or watching, but I don't really know unless I ask.
Mm-hmm.
Something can also, in the opposite, seem successful, and it actually didn't reach the people I was hoping to reach, but my impression. So it's first to start with, what was my impression? What can I learn from this? Is there anything I could have done better? Without beating myself up, without going to a lot of non-present judgments, assumptions, interpretations, labels.
Attachments.
Yeah.
That's what gets us into
Attachments.
trouble.
Yeah. Or
And
what did you call it? The thought
expectations.
storm?
Yeah. Because we whip them up. Yeah.
I actually, where does the thought storm come from? I work with a technique called EMDR. It's an eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and it's for people who experience trauma, but it's also for people who have phobias and recurring habits and this kind of thing. And one of the things we ask often is, for someone who's struggling with a memory or an experience, is, do you have an earlier example of this kind of emotional experience, right? Not going to the most recent one, but actually the oldest one. So it's like, where did this start? So where the thought storm comes in, where I'm not present to what's actually happening now, and I'm going to what happened so that I don't repeat it in the future, which is not now.
Exactly.
Where did it start?
So,
and the thought storm that comes from that, and then realizing that didn't come from me originally.
No.
That thought did not originate with me. It originated with someone telling me I wasn't good enough, someone telling me, or an experience where I didn't feel safe or something. That can come from me. But often the thought storm will come from someone else's judgment, someone else's assumptions. And I sort of interpret them or internalize them and take them with me on my journey forward. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's often not even our voice, it's somebody else's voice, in our head when we listen closely. But when we're present, there's an opportunity to just drop all that baggage when we see that it's not ours and it's just something we've been carrying with us, like a heavy rock in a backpack, and we can just take it off and put it down because we don't own it.
Exactly.
And when we're present, we can see that it's not necessarily truth. It's just a narrative that somebody laid down there for you. And even if it did originate with us, a lot of the time it's just habitual conditioned thinking that keeps coming up. So regardless if it's coming from something that happened before, it's just a memory carried through time into this moment. And when you can see it for what it is, you can choose to bring it into this moment or to leave it. And that's the value of presence. And this whole thing about, what you were saying earlier, if we have a mindset that feedback is criticism and feedback is failure, then we're going to view criticism and have the thought storm because that's how we view it and that's our paradigm. Whereas if we view ourselves as works in progress and we're into continuous improvement, then it's an opportunity to learn. To learn something new, and to ask the question of what might I do differently this time? Or next time, to yourself, to the guy that's giving you the glance, or to the audience that didn't receive the message. And we can learn. And there's huge value in that. So, we get into trouble when we personalize it and we make it about us. But feedback isn't who you are. Feedback is about a behavior, an opinion, something you said, but it's not you, the person. I was with somebody last week in a workplace who made a very poor decision, which was going to have knock-on effects on the organization. And I had to inform him that he had made a poor decision. And, I could see it in front of my eyes. He thought I was telling him he was a bad person, that he had no value. You could see his self-esteem seeping out of him. So we had to explore that. because he was gone off into a story. I don't know what story, but there was a story because you could see the wheels churning. And we unpacked it and processed it. And, by the end of it, he was able to see that he had a moment where he made a choice and he didn't make a great choice, and he could learn from it, and we could all move on. But if he chose to sit there berating himself and telling himself how horrible he was and what a bad person he was and how this was the end of his career and he was never going to get another chance, that could be devastating and very debilitating to somebody moving forward. And that wasn't the feedback. The feedback was, this happened, let's all learn from it and let's move on.
Yes, and that's that huge challenge of, it's beautifully explained, Jen. I love the description of it. And because you present it in a way, to me, when I hear you, it's like, this is so easy to relate to and understand. And I don't know anybody who hasn't been in that kind of situation and hasn't taken something or other personally at some point in time. And for me, one of the lessons was to realize that who I am isn't what I hear. Right? So if somebody's telling me something, that's not who I am, it's what I do. So what I do is not who I am. It's what I do. And I can change what I do. Who I am is infinite space and love and awareness and so many things. It's not value judgments and all of that. That's not who I am.
No.
That might be what someone thinks of me, but it isn't who I am.
No.
So, and that knowing that and knowing it more and more, because that was also something I had to practice. It allows me to take whatever I hear and do what I want with it. Exactly. I can choose to ignore it. I can choose to run it through my body and see if anything resonates. I can choose to have conversations about it. And another thing that I really thought was valuable to learn is I can choose to see that sometimes the person saying whatever it is they're saying needs to say it for some reason in their life. Maybe they need to be able to feel strong enough to give that kind of feedback. They need to have that experience to dare to say what they're saying. It may have nothing at all to do with me. They just need to feel in their power and feel like they're mastering something and coping with the situation. Or let the teacher know that they're smart, or whatever it is they need to do. It may not be really about me at all. Or
it never is.
But in a, like whatever I said or did, yes, that's a good point. But whatever, it may not actually be feedback to me, but more their need to experience some sort of strength and power in themselves. And I actually didn't consider that for a long time. It's like sometimes I actually have to stand still and breathe and listen to give the other person space to step up, step forward. And that is my gift to that person. If I take that in as anything to do with my person, I am taking away their opportunity to feel in their power and experience being present in that power and daring. Because people in many cases have been frightened away from speaking up.
And when you hold that space for people, it might be the first time that they've been allowed to air that voice, or it might be the first time that they've been listened to and heard. So you can actually be giving somebody a really big gift when you can be present and hold that space. And that's what makes the difference in relationships in the workplace. People that can actually put their own thinking and views and arguments and objections to one side and just put them down for a few moments and open their mind and pay attention to another person and what they have to say is huge. Like people think presence in the workplace is, I'm there, I go to work every day. That's presenteeism. That's not presence.
I can check off on the box that I showed up physically.
How many, we can all relate to trying to talk to somebody at work and we know they're not listening. You know, you walk into somebody's office and they say, yeah, come in, sit down. And they're typing away and they're checking their phone and you're trying to have a conversation or make a point or share an idea. You know they're not listening. Or you're walking down a corridor with them and they're just not there. You know they're not there.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, giving people undivided attention is presence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just stopping and giving time and attention without the distractions. It's so important. And I think particularly today, we're all so distracted with social media and we have so many technologies and gadgets and things hanging out of us. My phone rings, my watch goes off and my computer goes off. It's like, you know, and just to give people time and space to be present. It's just becoming more and more alien to us.
Mm-hmm.
We're just so hurried and rushed and trying to get from A to B and get through our to-do list and get out the other side and get home to the family and get through another to-do list there and crash on the couch for an hour and then fall into bed. And we spend our weekends recovering from the exhaustion of Monday to Friday, and we're not living in our lives.
Yeah.
You know, we're living in our heads. We're navigating from the narratives, the urgency, you know, everything that's going on in here, without actually coming home into ourselves and being here now.
Mm.
And when we do that at work and we clear ourselves, we have great ideas, our creativity kicks in, we have better relationships, we don't have as much interference while we're trying to do our work, so we're more productive, the quality of our work is better. You know, there's all sorts of benefits.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to slow down.
Yeah.
And our culture is not forgiving of slowing down.
I call myself a turtle because I'm slow.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a popular thing. I remember being very young and working in a bank and being told, you have to pick up your speed. You have to pick up your speed. And I just wasn't, I mean, I can talk fast. I can walk fast. I can do a lot of things fast, but I'm not really a fast person. I'm actually really, 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 really slow. And
Right.
I find that people can just be really angry with me just being around me.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to watch how quickly they can feel anger just because I'm at a different pace. I don't resonate at the same frequency. And it's just interesting. Yeah.
They can't dance with you. You're in a different rhythm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're out of step.
Or maybe they don't know what to do necessarily.
Yeah.
Or some people actually can't yet. And that's also something that can be trained. And that's recognizing that. But it was interesting to understand that it wasn't anything wrong with me.
No.
It's just where I kind of, to put it that way, vibrate, I guess. It's just at a different pace. Yeah. And that's just how I am in the world. But I also want to, if you don't mind, go back to just mentioning, you had mentioned the walking with somebody and you're talking and you can see that they're not really listening.
Yeah.
And I work a lot with what I call interpersonal or relational mindfulness. Mm-hmm. So it's mindfulness in relation.
Okay.
Because one thing is to sit and meditate and you're on your own, and that's pretty easy. It can be challenging enough, but on your own. But it's usually easier than being present with someone else.
Yes.
So when I'm walking with someone and I'm noticing and I'm talking and I'm noticing that they're not paying attention, or it seems like I have that impression, what is it like for me to be with that person as I'm noticing that they seem to be not paying attention, as I'm noticing my impression of what they're doing? What does that do with me? What happens in me? And what do I do in that situation? Do I own it? Am I present to it? Do I put that into words and bring that to them? I have the impression that you're not really here and listening to me right now. Mm-hmm. Does that resonate with you? Is that correct? And then they have the opportunity to lie or tell the truth or say, no, that's not what's happening. And then explain to me what is happening. And there's a dialogue, again, where if I'm present and open to that, I hear them. I'm present to what they're saying, and they're present to what I'm saying. If they actually are distracted for some reason, do I go into my story and think, for example, I actually don't really have this story anymore, thank goodness, but my old story, then I'll put it that way, where I must be boring, I must have said something stupid, or they don't like me, they don't care about me. That's the worst one. Oh, they
Yeah,
don't
I
love
don't
me, or
matter.
yeah, I don't. Yeah,
They've no
they're
interest in
just here
anything
with
I
me because
have
they're
to
doing me a
say.
favor. Yeah, it's like I'm the, and all of those things where
Yeah,
most of us can resonate with. What am
yeah,
I doing with that situation in my own? What's my thought storm in that moment?
yeah,
And do I dare to bring that into the moment? Right, whatever I'm thinking, I'm not, am I bothering you in some way, or is it, because maybe they're just having a bad day. Could be
yeah,
somebody they're thinking about who's ill. They could have slept really badly the night before. I mean, who knows? It could be any number of things that have absolutely nothing to do with me.
yeah,
But
yeah.
if I've conditioned myself to think, or been conditioned to think, that
Hmm.
the reason other people feel the way they do and act the way they do around me is my fault,
Yeah,
then that's often where my thoughts will go, until I realize that, nah, not
yeah,
necessarily.
yeah,
Let's actually meet that in the moment. Let's bring that and
yeah.
be present to that. And it can open up a world of wonderful experiences.
Absolutely. And it'll take you places you never imagined you would go and into conversations that you would never have dreamed up.
Yeah. And
You
it's
know,
like, do you dare to do that at work? Because it's one thing to do it with a friend,
Mhm.
but with a colleague, if you're supposed to be so perfect and successful, and I mean, people dress to the nines, and
Yeah,
even slight makeup problem is like a crisis, and whatever. It's
yeah,
like, do you dare to
yeah,
be you in the
yeah,
moment with your colleagues, your
yeah,
boss, your client? Like, you
yeah.
risk losing the person and possibly
You
an
do,
income or
absolutely.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in to
So
turn
you can't do
cultures, it has to start at the top. We need leaders that will ask these questions. We need leaders that are present enough not to go off into their own stories and get defensive and take things personally and make it about them. We need leaders that aren't full of themselves, in the sense that they can empty their head and not be full of their own thinking. That they can actually hear what somebody else has to say or let something new in. Um, you said you're a tortoise and you're naturally slow. I mean, up to 5 years ago, I was like this. My top three traits were analytical, focus, and a ranger, which meant I could spin multiple plates in the air, and the more plates, the happier I was. So how present was I?
Mm.
When I was walking down the corridor and somebody was talking to me, I had all these plates spinning in my head. I wasn't present because I was afraid if I was present, they'd all come crashing down. So nobody got my full attention ever,
Yeah.
at home or at work or anywhere else, because I was completely distracted, spinning all these plates and wearing it like a badge of honor. It's one of my top three people. Watch me. Um, and that's we do.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge in organizations today, is to create awareness of how we behave and to create, and the only way we can do it is by having conversations and getting people's attention about the business benefits
Yes.
of being present.
Do you
You
want to
have
say
to,
more about that, the business benefits? Because I don't think a lot of people even think that that's, I
yeah,
mean, being present is how could there possibly be business benefits if you are so present and open and sharing that you look like an idiot to people who are not, and I mean,
yeah,
you don't really look like an idiot, you're not an idiot, but to some
no,
people, they can interpret it that way, as signs of
yeah,
weakness or something like that. So
yeah.
would you mind saying something about the
No, not
business
at
benefits?
all. And it's about slowing down to speed up results. I guess
Mm.
that's essentially what it is. So if we think about customer service, if you're people that work in customer service are up in their heads, worried about, I only got 3 minutes per call, I only got three options of answers, how present are they? Whereas if they're allowed to be with the customer and to sit and to listen, chances are the customer is going to have a better experience, the employee is going to have a better experience, and you're going to get an outcome. And the minimum outcome you're going to get is that the customer will feel heard. which a lot of customers don't feel that today.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself would be a benefit.
Yeah.
There's enough research done now at this point to show trends in a decrease in accidents at work where there's more presence,
Mm-hmm.
increases in productivity, increases in trust, improved relationships, improved innovation and creativity, because people's channels are open when they're present. You know, they cut off and pinch off creativity when they're tight and stressed. You know, so it goes in lots of different directions. Organizations that are open, have awareness, have learning types of cultures with a tolerance for mistakes and treat them as learning opportunities. They have higher engagement rates, they have higher retention rates, they grow their revenue faster, they grow their bottom line faster. You know, the facts are there, but people don't want to hear it a lot of the time. You know, you said people get annoyed when you're slow. I mean, I hear regularly, I hear people complaining that that person has no sense of urgency. You know, and I kind of, good, glad. What do you mean? You know, we need them to do this today. We need it done in the next 5 minutes, and they need to be able to drop everything and just zoom in on this and get it done. And they don't seem to get it. And it's like, and what kind of result do you think you're going to get when you have that energy around somebody and you want them to buckle down and focus in, and they got 5 minutes and they have to get this result? You know, what are the chances of getting the result that you're looking for? And how do you feel in the process? And how does the employee feel in the process?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and that person then is going to walk away from that experience not in a good state of mind, not in a good emotional state. And your expectation is that they'll go off then and be productive for another 5 hours and deliver their top performance. You know, people, the better we feel at work and the more relaxed and open we are, the better we perform and the better our relationships are and the better business operates.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. But that's not our culture. And, you know, this is about culture shifts and building connected learning cultures where connection is valued for the results that it can deliver, as well as, you know, it's the right thing to do. And it's back to taking care of people, you know, and that kind of brings it back to the HR, because, you know, my ethos is if you care about your people will care about your company.
Yes.
You know, so it's a two-way street. And there's an awful lot of organizations that talk about, oh, our people are our best asset and we value our people. But how they conduct their business and how they treat people with a lack of presence speaks differently to the words that come out of their mouth. Mm-hmm. And then they scratch their head and they wonder, why does nobody stay? Why does everybody leave after 6 months? You know,
why is morale so low here? Even if they do stay, because they're terrified and they need a job or whatever, but they hate their job or they don't, you know, nobody's talking to each other in a really good way.
Yeah. Why is there so much
cares?
gossiping and backbiting? Because everybody's in a low state of mood. Yeah, everybody's mindset is low. Everybody's defensive. Everybody's closed off because of the atmosphere and the environment. So, you know, this presence isn't woo, this is practical. You know, if we're present with people and we allow them to be present as well, then we open up our true potential. Mm-hmm. Because we can then tap into our true potential and our creativity and our wisdom and our clarity and our intelligence and everything else, and it flows. Yep. And when we flow, we can and flow together as a team of people. That's powerful.
Very, very.
But businesses are catching on, I think. You know, it's a slow shift, but it's happening, and there is an awakening. And as more and more leaders wake up to the inside out nature of life and, you know, how we create life experience and the value of navigating life from that inner space of wisdom and creativity, the more people are showing up like that, and it's rippling out, but it's very slow. Mm-hmm. Where I live anyway.
Yes, we know the entire world, so we'll speak for the but it's it depends on the company. It depends what the value and mission statements are. All of that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about people who have written books, or even going back to the presentation, having done some succeeded at, to use that word. You've written a book and it's become a bestseller, or you've done a presentation and you've landed a lot of clients, or you're super successful, you do a TED Talk and everybody's like, "Wow," and it's viral or whatever. So we're looking sort of to the more successful side of it.
Yeah.
And the expectation at your next book, your next presentation, your next whatever it is going to be at least as good or must be better than the one that was amazing, whatever your song was or anything like that. And just to use your example, how in flow are you? How present are you if you're always thinking about, this one has to be better, or this one has to be at least as good. I need to write another hit. I need to write another bestseller. I need to do another presentation that lands me, well, if I did 80 clients last time, I need to do 100 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's that kind of, or especially if you believe that that's what you have to do, or you even in your life situation where you need the money or something, where there's some sort of outward pressure towards, where it's like something has to happen and it has to go well or else.
Yes.
It's almost like standing in your own way. And taking yourself away from the very thing that can allow you to tap into your own wisdom and strength and creativity and flow and communication, all of those wonderful things that are there when presence is there, when you're present to what is and not what has to be or what was or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's always the challenge, isn't it? In presence, it's a moment to moment invitation to stay where we are and not chase the story, because we're thinking all day long. There's thoughts coming in and out of our mind all day long. We can jump on any one of them, but if we're to be present, we don't want to jump on any of them. We just want to notice them all and observe them all, and be aware that we are the observer. And we're not any of these thoughts. But as soon as we jump on any train of thought, we're gone.
Unless, I just felt like bringing that in. Unless, and that's the, I get the jump on the train of thought. I actually really like that picture, jump on the train of thought.
Yeah.
If I jump on the train of thought, how am I going to put this? There's a difference between jumping on the train of thought, I think, and observing the train of thought. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what I'm trying to
absolutely.
If I'm on the train is taking me somewhere. But if I'm driving the train, maybe that's another way to put it. If I'm the conductor of the train, then I decide where it's going. I can observe the train as it drives.
Yeah.
And see where it takes me, and know that I don't have to believe any of those. I don't have to believe any of the thoughts I have, that train of thought.
Exactly.
I know that it's a thought.
Yeah.
That's what
even
it
the
is.
Good ones.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
They're not true.
Irritate me with Eckhart Tolle. I love Eckhart Tolle. But he would talk about, all the feelings and even the good feelings. And I would go, no. I want my good feelings. Nope. Yeah. And it didn't occur to me that the hunt for good feelings. I'm thinking in a different language and I'm trying to say it in English and it's not coming out the way I want, but looking for the good feelings, striving for good feelings is taking me away from the feelings that actually naturally arise in presence.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I love what you said there, that arise in presence, because what I hear in the workplace is, I'm fed up with this. I'm tired from all of this. I'm overwhelmed. I'm really stressed. And it's back to, that's not who you are. We identify with it. We attach to it. And I often encourage people to think in terms of anxiety is arising in me. Overwhelm is arising in me. Irritation is arising in me. because just the very language of that, I'm observing it, it's not me. It's not who I am. And as soon as we're into any expectation that something is going to be some way or another, whether it be the next book or the next presentation or even the next feeling or thought, we're attached. So as soon as there's an expectation, we've jumped on the train of thought, or we're holding on really tight instead of holding on loosely, when we're attached to that expectation. But if we can feel the feeling arising in us and observe it, that's the way for it to pass on through. Fred talks about energy, and energy's job is to move. So if we can observe it, we can allow it to continue to move on out. But we have to forget about expectations about things being any different than they are, or about, achieving a certain thing, because that's all what-ifing out into the future. If you're writing a second book, you're here right now in this moment, to write your second book. And the best way for it to be as amazing and awesome and successful as the first one is to take the journey into that space within, that quiet, creative, intelligent space within, and let it flow through you.
And why does it have to be as amazing and fantastic? And it's not the same book.
No.
How about if something else happens with that book that leads you somewhere else and you didn't know? You can't possibly know where it's going to lead you. What if it's a complete flop, and from that experience, that takes you to something that you needed to experience and it helped you grow, and then something happened that was fantastic, but you couldn't have known until you did the one thing. It's kind of that expression where the path, how do we say that? Sorry, I'm thinking in a wrong language. I'm going to say it in Norwegian first. Veien blir til mens man går.
Okay.
So the way becomes, or the path becomes as you walk it. I don't know how to say that in another. I'm translating it directly. The path becomes.
There's a saying here: build the bridge as you walk on it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, or the path reveals itself as you walk on it. Yeah. So it's one step at a time without knowing. You don't necessarily know where the goal is at the end, where the path is going to end, but you know where you are now. Yeah. Maybe you can see the next step, but you won't know what it's like until you actually take it. And you won't necessarily know what the step is after that until you've gotten to the step that's right in front of you. Or stand still and look and feel and be. And sometimes we just don't know, and we're not supposed to know. And that's what standing still is. It's not standing still ever really. It's allowing the present to be the present and show you.
Yeah.
So that you can make good decisions.
Exactly. I mean, life is being lived through us. We're not deciding how it's being lived. It's living through us. And there is a greater intelligence behind everything. And we're on a trajectory, whether we know it or see it or feel it. But what you're talking about is presence. We can't be in flow and let it all unfold and go wherever it goes unless we are present to it. Because if we're still trying to drive it in a certain direction and get a certain result and have a certain outcome, that's holding on tight. And that's not flow. So anytime we feel tension in our body, we're not present. Because as soon as we're present, we relax into the moment.
That's really funny, because I was thinking the exact same thing with slightly different words. And it's, I've said that to you before. We do this often. It's like, okay, Jen, you're talking about what's going on in my... I love that.
I didn't know I had that superpower.
Telepathic. We're not even in the same country.
I know.
Also the idea of, and I actually think this is really important, that being present to something doesn't necessarily mean that it feels good. No, it can feel horrible. And of course, the amount of horrible feeling, at least in my experience, is proportionate to the amount of resistance I'm bringing to the experience.
Exactly.
And if I'm resisting the experience, I'm not necessarily present to it, but sometimes I'm just not there. Like being present to something and not resistant to it, that can also take a lot of practice.
Yes.
especially
Yes.
when it's something completely new and I have no idea what's going on and it seems scary. And it'll often be because I have some underlying thought that I'm in danger somehow. If I have that sort of conditioning that the unfamiliar is dangerous,
Yeah.
then it's natural for me to show up in new situations or seemingly overwhelming situations with fear or resistance, right?
Yeah.
If I'm conditioned to meet unfamiliar situations with curiosity, on the other hand, I don't
Different
feel
story.
fear. Yeah. And it can be absolutely wonderful. Then there's joy,
Yeah.
there's play, there's flow, there's all kinds of things.
There is
But
absolutely.
being present to what is can mean being present to incredible discomfort
Absolutely.
and being able to give space to it.
Yeah.
Or not, and knowing that, okay, this feels overwhelming at the moment, and I need to understand. That's what I'm learning now is, okay, I need to learn how to give space to this so that I don't feel so overwhelmed. Am I really in danger, or am I just afraid because I'm actually in the future? I'm not really present. Yeah. So it's like, what layer of, it sounds ridiculous to put it that way, but what layer of presence am I at?
Yeah. No, it does.
Yeah.
No, it makes total sense. You remind me when you're speaking of, there's a guy called Jack Prensky, who's a three principles teacher. And he talks about the logical mind and the intuitive mind. And what brought it to mind for me when you were speaking was, this thing about the unknown and the fear of the unknown, because that's what shows up for people at work a lot of the time is we don't know what's going to happen or how it's going to work out. And so we get into all this what ifing and thought storms. But I love the way he says that our logical mind is designed to solve problems where all the variables are known. So 2 and 2 equals 4. If I need to make food, I can make a list of groceries and go and get them, and I can come back and make the meal. If I want to go and visit you, Miriam, I know I have to book a flight and a hotel and a car, and so I know all the variables. So my logical mind is great for that type of thing. But where the variables are unknown, or where some of the variables are unknown, the intuitive mind is much more useful, because the logical mind is full of everything we put into it. But if the answer isn't in there because we didn't put it in there yet, we can't draw it out. And that's where we get into trouble at work, because we're so conditioned and habituated to figuring things out with our cognitive machinery. If I just bear in on it long enough, and if enough of us bear in on it, surely to God we'll figure it out. And 2 heads are better than 1, and 5 heads are better than 2. And we'll just keep at it and at it and at it until we get something out at the other side. Whereas the intuitive mind is, asking the question, posing, putting the problem out there, saying we're looking for a solution, and just putting it on the back burner for a while. And letting your intuitive mind work on it, because what the intuitive mind can do is it can take everything that's in here and give you a new flavor of it, or convert it into something new. So it's not that they're separate and work independently of each other. The logical mind can work independently of the intuitive mind because we ignore the intuitive mind. But as soon as we invite the intuitive mind in and make space for it, the two can integrate. And then we get balance and harmony, and we get innovation and great new ideas. But we're leveraging what we already know. It's not that it's coming out of thin air and from nowhere. And that's the creative intelligence of who we are. But unless we tap into all the resources that are available to us, we're operating with a limited toolbox. And there's other tools available. And presence is the doorway to the intuitive mind.
Yes. It's like getting out of my own way. Yeah. Sorry.
And and in the workplace, it's the same. It's to help people get out of their own way, be more creative, find problems to their solutions, by letting them know that there's more tools in the toolbox, got people, we're just not using them.
Yeah. I work with or through Expressive Arts a lot, not always, but a lot. And what I mean by that is, and before everybody goes, oh, I can't draw, or I can't act, or I can't sing, or whatever, that's usually what comes up first, unless people know and have experience with it. Is like, no, I can't do this, because I didn't say you had to do it perfectly. I didn't say you were going to perform on a stage. If you can draw a line on a paper or in the air even, you can do expressive arts. If you can make a sound, you can do expressive arts. So I use expressive arts to get away from the logical, wordy mind, the explanations, the going around in circles in our heads and looking for answers with words and logic and straight lines. Mm-hmm. Expressive arts can be very surprising because the minute people start drawing, and I mean, it can be even just you close your eyes and you've got a pencil and you hold it like this instead of like that, like writing, or you put it in your non-dominant hands, where's the camera, and you start doing this with your eyes closed. And then when you open your eyes and look at it, okay, like looking at clouds, what do you see? And maybe turn the page, turn it upside down, or lie down and hold it in the air and look up at it, or stand up and look down, put it on the floor. What do you see? And then something can come from that, whatever it is. I see nothing, or I see a bird, or whatever. Okay. Oh, okay. What's the bird like? What color's the bird? Can you make the bird clearer? And then they bring another color in. Okay, what's it like to use that color? What does the bird look like now? Oh, I feel really happy when I look at the bird, or I feel really angry when I look at the bird, or the bird says, I can't fly. I'm scared to fly. Now we're talking through the bird. The creativity comes in through this. It's all of a sudden, oh, I have the solution. I didn't even know that was there. But I had to get out of my logical mind and my thinking, and I have to find an answer, or I have to do this or be this or whatever I have to do, and go into some other modality, the intuitive, the creative, in order to really be able to see and know and experience and be present to. It's being present at a different level, if we're going to talk about levels, or whatever you want to call it, through a different modality. And so many of the jobs, if I speak of the jobs I've had, like the typical jobs, have been logical jobs.
Me too.
Where people don't see the value of taking a break and playing ping pong, or going for a walk, or telling jokes, or even, now it's been, dare I say the word, COVID. Oh no, she brought up the 4-letter word.
Oh God.
And the home word. Offices and the C word. Oh my. My mind went to a totally different place. That's next week's thought topic, but we'll come back to that. I'll explain why I said that.
We're time traveling.
Yeah. But this working at home thing, the change of working at home and being connected to a computer, almost 24/7, really, or in some sort of way, some devices and that sort of thing, and then going back to the workplace, and how that's changed or not. Like people expect, some people say, oh, we're just going to go back to the way things were before. And how can you do that? How do you do that? It's not like it was before. It's not before, it's now.
No, it's now. You don't go back. We go where we are now. Yeah.
And then bringing in that, again, that sort of, well, if it's 1 + 1 = 2, then you think you can go back to the way it was before.
Yes.
But there's a whole lifetime of experience that's been going on for 1.5 years that you're trying to ignore, and it's not there. It's definitely there.
No.
You're not present to it, and that needs to be brought in some way.
Yeah. And the landscape of the workplace is very different now than it was 18 months ago for anybody.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters what your job was. It's different. Yeah. And people are different.
Yeah. And they're used to being able to, now being at home, for example, going out for a walk, or playing with their kids for a few minutes in the breaks, or doing something else other than stuck in front of the computer in an office. Hour after hour after hour, or commuting. And there's so many people having been encouraged to do creative things, using their more intuitive side, even the more self-caring side, while we've been in this situation, and then going back to an office, those same cubicles we've been in, but not being the same, not having the same, I don't know what to call it, work ethic or work
Well, we're not the same people
being.
now, are we?
Yeah.
Having come out through a pandemic, we're different. We
Yeah.
might sit in the same chair in the same cubicle, but we're different.
Yes.
And the work is different because it's not then, it's now. And we can live in the past and we'll suffer if we do, because we'll be in resistance to what's actually here and now. Or we can, fall out of the stories and have the opportunity to be enjoy in whatever is here now and get on with it and navigate it. But yeah, it's very different. And there's an awful lot of people scared going back to work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear in the workplace. Employers are afraid, employees are afraid, people are afraid of each other. People that were very close to each other are, giving each other a wide berth, and some people are fine with it, other people take it personally. And, so we've got all sorts of everything going on.
There's frustration and anger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grief.
Yes.
There's a lot of grief around.
And it's not necessarily being spoken. I mean, the ideal workplace would be, let's bring this. Let's bring this into the space. It's like, okay, you have had the opportunity to, for example, be with your children easily. You don't have that 1 extra hour of commuting or whatever it is to and from, taking your kids to the daycare, spending a lot more time away from them than with them, for example, for the people who have children, or you've been able to train more freely because you just run out your door and go jogging for half an hour and come back. But now all of a sudden that time is gone because you have to hop on a subway or whatever. Things are can feel less free. Some people have even come back to different tasks at work, or colleagues that were how do you say it in English, when they've lost their jobs,
been made redundant.
Yes, thank you. And so there are so many things that or they're being told that they can't do things that they could do more free. I mean, there's so many things in the mix now.
Absolutely.
And it's an opportunity, really huge opportunity for everybody to be present.
And there are some organizations that are bringing that into the workplace and having those conversations, and they'll reap the benefits. Because it's huge, and people notice that and they appreciate that, and it comes back in spades and goodwill in the workplace. But there's also a lot of organizations that are, have well-being programs, but it's still about, we're putting the bowl of fruit in the canteen, and we'll run the fitness contest and that, but they're not building well-being into work practices. They're not creating a workplace that fosters and embodies well-being in how they conduct their business and how they build relationships and and all those wonderful things. And I think that's the next step change that has to happen in the workplace, is bringing that whole presence into the workplace so that we can create organizations where people are in touch with their innate well-being and can work from that place and deliver for their businesses from that place and for themselves. And in the process of that, be well and take care of themselves. Because I think we can have it all when it's from the inside out and we're present. But when we try to do it from the outside in and have it all, it creates a lot of friction in the body.
Yes.
Physically, mentally, emotionally.
Yeah.
So we've just got to turn it inside out, really, is the way forward, I think, to create the organizations that businesses want and that people want to work in.
There's a difference between what I call the hi, how are you way of doing business and the presence, the way of business. Because the hi, how are you way of business is the hi, how you doing? And you don't really, and the answer can be, yeah, fine, how are you? Or not even fine, how are you? Hi, how you doing? Hi, how you doing? And it's never answered. Yeah. So that's the like you say, putting the fruit in the canteen, in the cafeteria, or the whatever contest or whatever. It's the boss saying,
tick the box.
Hi, how are you doing? Or what's it like to be back after this? And not really being interested in the answer.
No.
It's like I'm doing this, I'm performing this role, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm giving the impression that I actually give a darn, but I don't. I just want you to perform, and I want us to reach our goals. And yes, there are a lot of things that need to be done, and goals need to be met, or the company goes under, or whatever. But it's how.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between that, and so I respect this whole need for, yes, we do need to make money. We do need to do a lot of things to have good lives and survive and feed our children and keep the company afloat and all of that. And there are other ways of doing it where the people who are doing these tasks and working in these places feel like they're part of something that is organically working together, where they're seen, respected, heard, cared for, and will contribute in kind, because that's the kind of place. So if someone asks me, what's it like to be back? I would prefer that they actually mean the question, they're present to the answer. They do actually want to hear what I have to say, because I might have valuable feedback for them that could make the staff better, the company better, and the tasks easier. We can work a lot. We can learn a lot by listening. You don't necessarily have to act on everything. Some people can be very angry. Okay, well, we give space to the anger. And that's where we are. Okay, if we're angry, then we need to be with that and figure out how we meet that. So I would prefer to be heard. I don't always need to be heard, but I do notice often preferring to be heard if I'm asked a question.
No, I love that. One of my favorite leaders is a guy who throughout the pandemic was calling his staff at home, every week or every couple of weeks. And if they gave him an answer like I'm fine or I'm grand or, sure, whatever, he would say, oh, really? Tell me about that, because I'm not.
I love it.
And people would kind of go, what do you mean? And he go, well, I'm not grand. I've been up and down and all over the place during this pandemic. So if you're fine, please tell me how you're doing that.
I love that. It's such an opening.
Yeah.
I love that.
So, and I tell you, he got a lot of feedback, but helped a lot of people because they trusted him enough to open up because they knew he wanted the honest answer.
Yes, it's about we are human after all.
Yeah.
Or as Bobby would say, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, but it doesn't matter, we're human. We're human. And then Bobby and I can argue about that later.
There you go. I leave you guys to that.
Well, we've come to the end of the hour.
Cool. That was a fast hour.
Yeah, it went quickly I don't know how it went for the people who are listening, and thank you to those of you who have joined us and are still here. Is there anything you'd like to say to round off before I stop the recording?
Yeah, just that there is a real value in being present, and don't take my word for it. Just take it away for checking and try it out and see how you get on. We'd love to hear.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to round off with, if somebody asks you a question, check in with yourself to see what the answer is for you and see if you're hesitating to share the answer. And if you are, you have a choice to make. See if you can choose to trust the person who's asked you or not. There's nothing wrong with either one. Nothing wrong at all. Your experience is your experience. But I invite you to check and see if you choose not to share your present experience. Why not? Just ask yourself the question and listen to the answer. Maybe there's an opportunity there that you're not allowing to happen. And if the person does not react well, if you choose to share, or if you're afraid to share, perhaps ask yourself why you think you are weak and won't be able to deal with it if the person does react in a way you think would be uncomfortable. Maybe you're stronger than you think, and you can stay present to what's there. Remember, it's not about you. You are not who they say you are. Thanks, everybody, for being with us for Presence in the Workplace, Part 2. Next week's theme, make sure it's Part 2. You can find Part 1 in the Presence Posse Facebook group. Next week's theme is a new one for us. We're having a guest. We're having a guest because we're going to be talking about playful presence and sex. So Andrea Maines will be joining us from Canada to help us with that topic. So tune in at the same time next Monday for playful presence and sex. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. It's been good to be with you. And thanks, Jan.